Hello. All right, today's lesson is all about mid-segments of triangles. So a mid-segment means that we have a segment, so like a little line segment right here, that touches the two midpoints on a triangle. So D would be the midpoint of the segment BA, E would be the midpoint of segment CA. So D is right in the middle, E is right in the middle. So that creates, when you connect those two midpoints, that creates a mid-segment. And that's what this one is right here. So a mid-segment is, like I just said, mid-segment of a triangle is a segment connecting the midpoints of two sides. So the triangle mid-segment theorem is the thing we're going to be using pretty much this whole entire lesson. So if a segment joins two midpoints, then it's the mid-segment. It has to be parallel to the third side. So if I go back up here, DE is parallel to BC. So this little symbol means parallel. And also, it says the midsegment is half of its length. So DE, the length of DE, would be equal to half the length of BC. Or another way we could look at this is that if I multiply DE times 2, then that will equal the length of its parallel side of the triangle, so BC. So these two things are the same equation, obviously. So we just multiplied by 2 on both sides and that got rid of the half. So we're going to be using both of these things in this whole section. So example 1 says that we need to find the value of x if CD is a midsegment of the triangle. So they already tell us that CD is a midsegment, and we can tell because this line segment is congruent to this one because of these little tick marks. Each one has 2. And then this segment is congruent to this segment because they each have 1 tick mark. So that means CD has to be the midsegment. So in order to find the midsegment length, if we know its parallel sides length is 10, x would equal 10 divided by 2, or 1/2 times 10, which is 5. So x is equal to 5. Example 2, or I don't know why it says example 1 there. So example 2, find the value of x if AB is the midsegment of the triangle. So this time they give us the length of the midsegment. So obviously we know the midsegment is smaller than its parallel side. So our two options here are either divide by 2 or multiplied by 2. But if this one is smaller, then we're going to have to multiply it by 2 to get that. So x is going to equal 31 times 2. So x would equal 62. So moving on to the next page. So in triangle ABC, the points F, G, and H. So F, G, and H are all midpoints. So we know if this is a midpoint, these two segments are congruent. So this segment and this segment are congruent. AH and HC would also be congruent. And then BG and GC would also be congruent. They tell us that FH is 8. So FH right here is 8. GH is also 8. And then FG is also 8. So we need to find the length of AB, BC, and AC. So they just gave us a bunch of midsegments. So if I look, I know that F and H are both midpoints. So this line right here, I'm going to draw in red, that's a midsegment. So that midsegment's length is 8. So in order to find the length of its parallel side, so this side is parallel to this side, so BC. Draw a red line. So those two lines are parallel because if they went on forever, they'd never touch. So if the midsegment's 8, then BC has to equal 8 times 2. So BC is 16. Then let's use this little midsegment. It's parallel to this side. If the midsegment's 8, AC would have to equal 8 times 2. So AC would equal 16. And then finally, we have this side that we have not used yet. It's parallel to this one, to AB. So AB would have to equal 8 times 2 again, because the midsegments are all 8. That's why we keep multiplying 8 times 2. So AB would equal 16. So that's how you do example 3. So moving on to example 4. We have to find the value of x. So this time we have a rectangle, but if you look closely, you'll notice that we have a triangle that I'm outlining in purple here. So we got the 2 little tick marks here, which tells us that this is what kind of point? Hopefully you said midpoint. And we got 1 tick mark, which tells us that those two are congruent. So that means this point has to be in the middle or a midpoint as well. So we got a mid-segment. So this orange line right here is a mid-segment. So in order to find x, the mid-segment, if its parallel side is 25, x would have to equal 1/2 times 25, or 25 divided by 2. So x would be 12.5. And then finally, example 5. FG is a midsegment. So they already tell us that FG is a midsegment. So F is a midpoint and G is a midpoint. So FG is 9. So this is 9. AB is 12. And AC is 31. Find the value of BC and the perimeter. So if I wanted to know the value or the length of BC, the mid segment is 9, and that mid segment is parallel with this other blue line. So the third side is longer than the mid segment, so I have to multiply times 2. So BC would equal 18. So this is 18. And then we got to find the perimeter. So in order to find the perimeter, that's just all the outside lengths added together. So perimeter would equal 12 plus 31 plus 18. So 12 plus 31 is 43, plus 18 would be 61. And then I don't think it gives us units, so I'll just put units. So that's how you find the perimeter of example 5. And then finally, a little closure assignment here. Well, just a question. So you guys find the value of x and then choose the correct multiple choice answer.